Hello. The following programme, IM1, A New Beginning, is a satirical comedy which takes a cheery sideways swipe at Manx life, Manx politics and Manx radio. As such, it uses language and imagery which is slightly stronger than our usual fare and, breathe not a word of it abroad, the odd swear word. It may not, therefore, appeal to those of a more delicate disposition or without a broader outlook on life. It is not our intention to offend anyone, so if you feel it may not be your cup of tea, I recommend you give it a miss, go to the Manx Radio website, click on the podcast tab and try one of the hundreds of wonderful podcasts available for your delectation. The archive room is particularly good. If it is your bag, sit back, get a shandy or a small mug of Bovril and enjoy a happy half hour of extracting the proverbial from the happenings, people and politics which make Manx life the joy it is.
Manx Radio, the black satanic mill on the hill, has been broadcasting to the Manx populace, or at least those who remember to listen, for more years than most care to remember, or indeed want to. Despite numerous obstacles placed in its way, COVID, the cost of living crisis, the war in Ukraine, the Manx government, it continues to doggedly broadcast to the nation, having been made the official national broadcaster of the Isle of Man in 2019. This means the station is obliged to keep broadcasting whether people want it or not. In recent years, in a hope that something better may replace it, the government cleared the way for other broadcasters to take to the airwaves, and increasingly the web and social media. Thus it is that broadcasting organisations such as 3AM, Lethargy and Jack the Muskrat compete for an ever-dwindling audience who are all listening to something else. The presence of other broadcasting organisations has variously been described as a healthy sign of an open and competitive marketplace in a robust economy by the Cabinet Office comms team, and complete shite by social media commentator Ewan Turder, though he later removed Lethargy from the list when he remembered he owned it. Meanwhile, Manx Radio lurches on towards its 60th birthday in 2024 with the launch of its new DOB service, or Dodgy Oral Banter, a new service which means not only can you hear what you're listening to, but also read about what you're listening to, in case listening on its own wasn't bad enough, in a service aimed at motorists who like to read whilst driving. The station is also hoping to bring together many of its old presenters, especially those who are still alive, for a 60th birthday bash, and pay tribute to all those still working but who continue to die on air every day. It's been some time since we last dropped in on the happenings at Manx Radio Towers, but happily very little has changed. Let's catch up with the latest happenings, such as they are at IM1. It's 7:45, and whilst the sleepy nation wakes, Ben and Sian, who've already been at work for 6 hours, are well into their breakfast show. It replaced the long-standing Mandate show several years ago, after it was discovered the average age of the audience was 87, which by curious coincidence was the same as the audience size. The replacement breakfast show is called Breakfast and replaced long-form interviews with politicians with short-form interviews with the same politicians, but now mixing them up with smash hits from the likes of Robbie Williams, ABBA and Bobby Crush, with no item longer than 50 seconds, the maximum time anyone can now concentrate since the invention of TikTok. It's competition time.
A great classic there from Aqua here on Manx Radio, Barbie Doll. Great to hear that again. Now, Siobhan, it's competition time.
Yes, it is.
Yes, and we've a new competition for you this week. Don't worry, Who's Squeezing My Box will be back shortly. But now we've got a new competition to celebrate our new king, who will, of course, have his L plates on for the first 6 months. So we've called it King L.
King L.
So all you have to do is go to the Manx Radio Facebook page and name who you think the heavily disguised king is. To make it easier for you, we've got 3 options. Is it option A?
Jason King, the loose, droopy-moustached, cravat-wearing secret agent from the 70s TV series Department S.
Option B?
Billie Jean King, the famous tennis player and women's rights campaigner.
Or C?
Former Manx Radio intern, writer, broadcaster, producer, director, actor, singer, poet, trombonist, activist, blogger, TikTok star and presenter of the podcast Just Strumming Myself, William King.
Email your answers to breakfast@manxradio.com and mark them Who the King L is that?
I'm the king of rock and roll.
And if your name is first out of the hat, you could win some Manx Radio goodies, all purple.
Mugs,
Pens,
bags,
hearts,
helmets,
rain. We've got them all. And we'll have another King L tomorrow.
King L.
Now though, from King L to WTF as we turn our attention to the island's airport.
Yes, a lot of people I've spoken to recently say it's very difficult to actually tell whether the airport is open or closed, as there's so little activity down there. Well, Minister Chris John Thomas was due to join us this morning to help clarify the situation. By clarify, I obviously mean make considerably more complicated. But ironically, he's stuck on a plane as we speak. It should have landed last night, but after circling for several hours waiting for air traffic control, which was closed for a stag party, has now been diverted by IFIJet to Botswana, where it was scheduled to take a party of nuns on retreat. But due to the wonders of AI...
Artificial insemination?
No, artificial intelligence. We can now speak to his avatar, Virtual Thomas, who we're told by government is every bit as indecipherable as the real thing. To run it, we just say, run VT.
Run VT.
Hello, good morning, everyone.
Quit all the night stuff and just answer the question.
Is the airport broken?
Well, no, I wouldn't say it's broken. Clearly one or two windows are going a bit rusty and the lift is often out of service, but...
I was thinking more about the air service to the island rather than the building, Minister.
Well, we see the airport is currently being in a transition phase.
Between being good and being shite?
No, you've got to remember during COVID there were no flights arriving or leaving the airport for months on end.
The same as now, in fact.
I hardly think that's accurate.
We have a letter from a listener here who travelled with her husband to Gatwick for a couple of days in London, after which he flew on to Singapore for a business trip and she flew back to the Isle of Man on the evening flight. Guess who arrived at their destination first?
I'd rather not.
Another gentleman, who we'll just call Julian, has contacted us to say statistically hitchhiking back to the island from London is more reliable than booking the evening flight out of Gatwick.
The department has been in discussions with IFIJet, who say there have been some operational issues with the evening Gatwick flight.
The main issue being that the planes don't actually take off.
In actual fact, Sean, if you look back at the air figures since the island adopted its open skies policy, it has in fact proved very successful.
Well, the skies are certainly very open. There's no planes in them.
NT Council of Ministers has been in discussions with other airlines and also consider a new Fly Yourself scheme.
Fly yourself?
It's just a concept at the moment, but the idea is to underwrite flying lessons for everyone under the age of 75 on the island, so once qualified they could fly themselves to the destination of their choice.
And how much would this cost?
Around £425 million. But if we look at the bigger picture, Sean, this would actually work out cheaper per flight over the next 5 years compared to having to bribe another airline to come here for 6 months.
And in the meantime?
Yes, well, of course, part of the issue, as you know, Sharon, is that the airport doesn't actually make money.
Is this because hardly any planes actually land there?
While there's inward investment, of course, we've had to invest in some new trolleys which were desperately needed.
What? To remove the bodies of those who died while waiting for a plane?
Now, we have spoken to former Chief Minister Howard Quayle to ask what he thinks of the state of the airport, and he simply replied, Manx Radio, get my name out of your f***ing mouths. So, pretty much what we expected there. Oh, I'm sorry, Siobhan. We're going to have to leave it there. Thanks to Virtual John Thomas. Cut VT, as we have an update from the newsroom, where we can join Lewis Foster.
Thanks, Ben. Yes, it's actually an update on flights. We've just heard that this morning's IFIJet flight to Gatwick has been delayed. The problem is said to be down to a long queue at Costa in departures, where the island's air traffic controller is currently stuck awaiting a double-shot latte with squirty cream.
Oh, you can't beat a bit of squirty cream.
You can't.
Oh, before you go, Lewis, any chance you could give us a quick rendition of I Was Born Under a Wandering Star? You know, the one by Lee Marvin?
No, I've told you before.
Oh, there's no time, in fact, because we've got to join Johnny Moskins with a look ahead to today's sitting of Tynwald.
Yes, good morning. Well, as the island teeters on the brink of collapse, With infrastructure crumbling, the health service in crisis, a chronic shortage of GPs, air services at their most unreliable in 30 years, major building schemes stalled in numerous brownfield sites around the capital, giving the city a distinct feel of a war zone and leading some MHKs to suggest that Douglas should be twinned with the Democratic Republic of the Congo. There is, as you can imagine, a packed agenda for this month's sitting. Most of the 43 questions tabled for oral answer are from Arbury, Castletown and Maloo MHK Jason Moorhen. Well, all of them, to be honest, covering topics such as the cost of dog licences for pensioners, the colour of lampposts in Colby, the incorrect spelling of Russian Abbey, a proposed tax on trouser presses and cheese waste. And he'll also ask the DEFRA Minister, Claire Barber-Wellis, about the readiness of the island's duck industry for Brexit restrictions. Meanwhile, the first item on this month's order paper is the House of Keys 11s bill, which seeks to introduce a 30-minute 11s break for the House after the first 50 minutes of debate. Claire Heathen, MHK, believes the short half-hour break for tea, coffee and a malted milk or Nice biscuit would help keep debate fresh in the court and also help boost the local trade, the dairy trade. This will be followed with a debate on the bishop's presence in Tynwald and whether he should be removed by force, if necessary, from the Tynwald chamber, as no one other than God has voted for him. An amendment to this has been tabled by Tim Glovepuppet MHK, who's been working remotely from the Isle of Arran since leaving his position in government, and calling everyone else a bit bent, who suggests a good halfway house would be to ask the real bishop to leave voluntarily, but replace him with a cardboard cutout bishop so that most people wouldn't notice. However, this move is facing strong resistance by several MHKs who believe it would be the beginning of a slippery slope and end up with all members of Tynwald being replaced with cardboard cutouts, a move which the bishop claims even fewer people would notice. It's also claimed it would speed up the passage of legislature by a factor of 10. There is also due to be a one-man demonstration outside Tynwald this morning. We know this as it actually started last night. Onken MHK Robbie Callister Removals will be petitioning other members of the court by sitting outside the building waving placards which read, "It's not fair and I'm very upset."
Great, thanks Johnny. But now with the time coming up to 8 a.m. here on Manx Radio, you know what that means, Siobhan, don't you?
Yep, it's an hour closer to home time.
And it's also time for that lovely news.
Ooh, my favourite.
On AM, FM, social media, YouTube, TikTok, the dark web, online, on your tits and our new Dob service. This is Manx Radio.
How excited are you?
It's 8 a.m. and time for the news with E.M. Foster.
Lewis Foster.
I know, it was a joke.
Right.
Yeah, but can you sing Old Man River?
I've told you.
No. Oh, carry on then.
Manx Radio News at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, I've just done that bit. Just get on with the news.
Suggestions as to how to make Ronalds Way Airport run more effectively will be laid before Tynwald members next week. A report by independent aviation consultancy Pork Aviation suggests getting planes to actually land there would be an excellent start. BethSB.com has the details.
For many years now, the Isle of Man government has run what's known as the Broken Skies policy, whereby airlines can decide themselves whether or not they can actually be asked to fly here. In practice, this means flights often being scheduled but then cancelled at the last minute for operational reasons, when the airline in question realises their plane may get stuck on the Isle of Man overnight, or there's not enough people on the flight to make it profitable, or perhaps it would be more convenient for them to have it on another route altogether. The policy has been complicated by Isle of Man Airport only having one air traffic controller and 3 torches to help planes land at night and on windy days, meaning many flights in winter have to land in Liverpool, with passengers being transferred to a bus link, which, with luck, also involves a boat of some kind. Many travellers feel the island was better served during the days of the much maligned at the time but now sadly missed Manx Airlines, which, while charging £850 in real terms for a single flight to Heathrow, did have the great advantage of frequently landing there on the same day it took off, and also offered little chocolate mints shaped like the 3 legs of man, completely free. The Pork Aviation report suggests that along with virtually every other problem on the Isle of Man, cutting back on bureaucracy could make both substantial savings and improvements in efficiency at the airport. A typical example, which is quoted, a decision going from airport director to financial advisory service to departmental chief officer, onto the infrastructure minister, then treasury and eventually the council of ministers, before it was confirmed there are never enough lemons bought for the airport bar for anyone who wants a slice in their gin and tonic whilst they while away the hours between flights getting pissed. The report is due to be received by Tynwald, then, in keeping with court tradition with such reports, put on a shelf and forgotten.
Removing the bishop from Tynwald would be a step forward for mediocrity. That's the view of Joni Happydays MHK, who's indicated she wants new laws introduced to remove independently intelligent views from the Legislative Council. Bishop Buzzard is retiring later this year, so Miss Happydays wants changes to take effect before anyone else with a well-informed view, non-political stance and high moral values is appointed to help review legislation. She believes the current system is fundamentally flawed, as bishops in general aren't malleable enough. A public meeting is due to take place, and whilst the venue is yet to be confirmed, it's hoped to be at the Mitre. As the debate about the addition of fluoride to the island's water supply rumbles on, a new case for mass medication has come to light. It's been suggested that Tynwald's water supply would benefit from the addition of calcium. It's claimed that not only would this be good for overall health, but would also help several members of Comyn grow a backbone. There will be double celebrations when the new steam packet vessel enters service later this year. The imaginatively named Manxman recently underwent sea trials in North Korea involving war games and minesweeping ahead of its 18,000-mile trip to the island. Along with being the first purpose-built boat for the steam packet fleet in several decades, the Manxman also has the unique distinction of being the only government capital project which hasn't sunk yet.
Jenny, being Manx, we always want to know everyone else's business. Ever wondered what's going on in those bushes at the back of the garden wall? Well, get yourself a stepladder, climb up and
have a good skeet.
Not sure what the boss, some old come-over no doubt, is saying about you? Want to know more? Well, pinch his briefcase, photocopy the contents and
have a good skeet.
Ever wondered what your next-door neighbours are up to in the bedroom? Just get a glass, hold it to the wall, press your ear hard to it and
have a good skeet.
Not sure which of those Tynwald clowns you should be shouting to after the latest flight cancellations at the airport? Well, get down to the Keys building for question time and
have a good skeet.
Yes, have a good skeet. Most definitely the Manxest thing you'll ever do.
Have a good skeet. It's what being Manx is all about. Visit the Isle of Man and enjoy seeing 1,000 years of history disappear before your eyes. Ride on the historic steam trains on the one bit of track which hasn't been ripped up. Marvel at the 150-year-old electric trams, allowing some breathtaking views of the island's best fly-tipping sites. Take a tranquil ride on the world-famous horse tram, which takes you from an ancient to derelict building site at one end of the beautiful seafront to a busy road junction in the middle of it. Or marvel at the world's biggest water wheel in Laxey, newly restored from near collapse. Or at least the obvious bits are, the rest are still totally knackered. This year, visit the Isle of Man. Forged by Vikings, built by Victorians, ignored by governments. The Isle of Man, 1,000 years of neglect.
Manx Radio has for many years been associated with the TT and returned last year after a 2-year hiatus due to COVID. Not so much bigger and better than before, as exactly the same size. This year was the centenary of the sidecars, an event which has a rich and colourful history, like the TT itself, and this was marked by the ceremonial demolition of the historic scoreboard. It was replaced by a giant laptop, and other new innovations this year included a commentator chosen for never having been to the Isle of Man before, his lack of familiarity with the TT, and good weather. New ACU regulations mean that everyone involved in the commentary team have to have a name ending in EE. Ashley, Boydie, Boothie, whilst those whose name really does end in an EE, like Chris Kinley, have to change it to Ers, Kinners. Elsewhere, the team consists of BethEsby.com or Totty, chosen for her passionate lack of knowledge about bikes. Let's check out a little of this year's coverage. Ashley Cottage is the lead commentator and anchor.
Welcome to TT23. There's Totty and Kinners and Boothie and me.
And me, Boydie.
Well, yeah, but I couldn't say that, could I?
Why not?
Well, it doesn't scan, does it? Welcome to TT23. There's Beth and Kinners, Boothie and me. And Boydie.
Well, does it have to scan?
The island's a biker's place, world famous for the TT race.
What?
There's thrills and spills and girls and bikes and speed which makes us go yikes.
No, we don't.
We're ready to go racing with Kinners in the pits.
Some riders quite excited and some have got the shits. Now, can we get on with it?
Yes, indeed, and welcome to the Isle of Wight, home of the famous TT course. 39.5 kilometres of pure adrenaline.
Wrong.
The place is steeped in history. You can almost feel the presence of the greats of the sport that we so love. Stanley Matthews, Giacomo Puccini, Mike Yarwood, Eddie Grant, Paddy McGuinness, and the king of the hill, Joe Metzler, or Joe 90 as he was known.
No, he wasn't.
Well, we're just minutes away from the start of the Blue Ribbon, or the Kit Kat event of the races, the elderly TT.
Senior.
The riders will soon get a plug on the shoulder and be flat out down Glencrutchery Road and onto the truly terrifying slope which is Grey Hill before taking off over Iggy's Leap and down to the quarter deck.
For f***'s sake.
So let's get all the stats from practice. Here's Boydie.
Yeah, thanks, Ashy. Well, Peter Hickman's recorded 132.47638 over a mean of 15 minutes 32.198, puts him in first place. Comfortable lead of at least 48. Dean Harrison recorded 15.25.4509. An outstanding effort from a standing start there. A flying lap which removed 7.987 over his average for the week of 122.998. Michael Dunlop on fire, not literally of course. An amazing lap of 15.40.944 straight out of the box, carding a 12.43.998 for the sector to Ramsey Hairpin, lower by 6.799 for the McGuinness, with a figure in the Sulby Trap which was 2.88 higher than the 201.227583 recorded by Anstey back in 19. Local man Connor Cummins coming in at 6 on the dot.
Thanks, Boydie.
Ashy.
Boydie, now let's head down to the pits where Totty is talking to the Birch Hill sisters.
Brothers.
Whatever.
Yes, thanks, Ashy. Boydie. Well, I'm here with the Birch Hill brothers. Hello, boys.
Hey,
So we're standing here by your machine. Tell us, what is the difference between this and a motorbike?
Well, it's got 3 wheels.
So what about a go-kart?
Well, it's got 4 wheels.
Right. So who sits in that little seat there? They call them seats, don't they?
Chairs.
I knew that, of course. So is it faster than, say, a panda?
Yeah.
Gosh. A cheetah?
Oh, yes.
A rocket?
No.
Great. Thanks so much for talking to us.
Is that it?
Yes, it is. But thank you so much.
Right.
Thank you. Thanks. Thanks for making the time. Thank you. Back to Ashy.
Thanks, Totty.
Thank you.
Thanks. And now, out onto the track, I can see Glen Helen is passing through Glen Irwin.
What?
But now, for the few locals who are listening, here's Philly with a quick update to keep you all up to speed with what's happening in Manx dialect.
Aye. Got a mired, yes, sir. Well, there's been a good gaggle of them old motorbike racers, ratching round and round the island, fast as devils, and a little scotch of them even faster than the race. The course is dry, oh, dry as an old cow's udder. Even the old Manxy 3-wheel fellas has been fast awful, scratching down Bray Hill, faster than one of those runaway electric trams scuttling down the mountainside. Good to see young Molly managed to get past Quarterbridge the other day, too. I knew that Hickey fella. Guy, hang boys. Little Kenley, you know the fella, Castletown boy, related to me father's great-uncle's 5th cousin on the mother's side. Yes, you know, Kenley. Aye, well, Kenley's hardly got Hickey shouted off from the start line, and the beggar zip passes up Craig Willie's fast as a seagull swooping down after your chips. Anyhow, today we'll have lots of them super stocker motor bocker thingies off first, Then some clever waffle from Lil Kinley. After that, the little noisy beggars will take a trip round. A bit more waffle back at the grandstand from the Radio Manx ones. And then, to finish off, if there's any time left, of course, the little Manxy three-wheel slidey cars.
And so it goes on. There'll be much more of that at the same time next year. In the meantime, if you want more of exactly the same stuff, only way out of date, go to the Manx Radio website, click the I Haven't Got a Life tab and listen to hundreds of hours of stuff you've already heard. Windy Ant produces and presents The Man in Line, which, to reflect changing sensibilities in the island, has now been named the Non-Specific Gender in Line. It allows people who've chosen to live on the island or who have lived here for years to come on air to tell everyone else how crap it is, with many regulars spending long hours on the web to find new aspects of Manx life to whinge about. It also has special reports, such as this one from award-winning journalist Sinead O'Connor.
The current government economic strategy aims to increase the island's population to 100,000 by 2035. It's claimed proactive efforts are being made to market the Isle of Man to young professionals in the hopes they will relocate their business to the island. But with the island undergoing one of its toughest economic periods in recent memory, what are the potential stumbling blocks for these potential new residents? I flew to London for the Relocate 23 exhibition and chatted to a group of young professionals who are considering moving to the island.
My name is Sarah, I'm 23 and I run my own web-based marketing and design company.
So, is the Isle of Man somewhere you would consider relocating your business to?
Well, yeah, I've been thinking about it, and the tax structure certainly is advantageous for a business like mine, and it seems like a pretty safe place to live.
Are the travel problems an issue?
What travel problems?
Well, there's only one airport and it shuts every day for breakfast, 11s, lunch, afternoon tea and supper before closing altogether at 9:30pm.
Well, I mean, it's not brilliant to be honest, but I can work around that. I can work online a lot of the time.
The average waiting time to see your GP is 2.5 months and slightly longer if it's an emergency.
Well, I use a lot of alternative medicine practices, so that's not really a major concern.
So, will you come?
I doubt it.
So what's the problem?
To be honest with you, it's the bishop. I'm really concerned about his unelected position in the upper house and his high morale values. I don't think I would be able to relax knowing he was there at every sitting of Tynwald. It would just throw a shadow over our ambitious short to medium term business development policy.
Hello, my name's Colin. I run a small private air services business.
And have you ever considered the Isle of Man as a base?
Well, yeah, we have been approached by the Isle of Man government, who are keen for us to run a franchise-dedicated air service using our small fleet of Dash 7 aircraft.
Really?
Yeah, it seemed like a perfect fit for us, doing short-haul, no-frill flights between the island and several key UK hubs. Manchester, Luton, Edinburgh and Dublin. The business model was good and the government were prepared to underwrite the service.
Did the dire state of the island's air services provision not put you off?
Nah, we felt that was something we could work around.
You do know there's currently only one air traffic controller for the island, and they've got a poorly cat.
Well, we have our own associated team of qualified ATCs who we work with, and they were going to be fast-tracked at Ronald's Way in advance to be ready to start work as soon as we were able to operate our service.
I sense there's a but here.
You're all right. We had to withdraw from the contract at the 11th hour after we heard the bishop would be retaining his seat in the upper house. It's such a shame, as everything else looked ideal, really, and I believe it could have worked well for us and the island. But not when we know there's a high-ranking member of the Church of England expressing his well-educated and independent views in discussions within a legislative revising chamber. It just doesn't fit in with our progressive, fair and low-budget ethos. Either he went or we did. Sadly, it was us.
I spoke to several other young entrepreneurs and business professionals, and each time it was the same. Whilst the island has severe issues and staff shortages in the health service and education, crumbling infrastructure and dire air service to the UK, it's the Bishop's Place in Tynwald which is the main stumbling block for many young professionals considering relocating here.
And some news just in. Ronaldsway is operating at reduced capacity this morning due to fog. Airport Director Gary Bapp says he's been in contact with the Department of Infrastructure to confirm that whilst he doesn't have many ideas, their suggestion of utilising giant fans at the end of the runway won't work. Mr. Bapp says the airport is already running at reduced capacity after the rotating radar scanner thing at the top of air traffic control became stuck in one position, meaning they can see what's going out but have no idea what's coming in, though fortunately most of the time that's nothing. He adds that due to staffing difficulties on alternate days, the airport is now operating its SHITT strategy, that's Students Help in the Tower, where sixth form students from King Bills are drafted in to try and make sure planes don't bump into each other. Hello? Ben? What do you want? Yes, I know the Wellerman. What about it? No, I'm not doing the low bit in the chorus. Leave it, will you? For God's sake. Dum, 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 dum. I was born under a wandering star.
Oh, yes! Yes!
IM1 A New Hope was written and performed by Edwina Roach, Islamic Worlds, Fertile Sowls, Basil Richthofen, Josh Noms, Angel Whip, Barney Ethel, Ninja Ostriches, Annie Shaver and Lush Lyrics. It was a lastminute.com production for Manx Radio, and there's every chance that it will be back later in the year if anyone can be asked. Virtual John Thomas is available for endless committee meetings, public consultations, requisition meetings and hen parties.